Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sustainable Tourism. This is the first module of the course prepared to you by Sustainable Ecotourism Awareness, a project co-funded by the European Union within the Erasmus Plus program. Today, we are here to talk about the different case studies with our guest speaker, Massimo Mercuri, who is the co-founder of think tank AlterContacts. My name is Skupchenko. I'm also the co-founder of think tank AlterContacts, and so today, together, we will bring you a little bit of insights into our practice in sustainable tourism. And without further ado, Massimo, please.
Hello, good evening, and well, here we are. So I guess the first thing that, well, first I would like to thank everybody for watching this video. It is an honor to be part of this project. It has a fantastic consortium of partners, and we are all contributing to deliver the best we can in this training about sustainable tourism, certification, and the opportunities that exist in this field. So I guess the first question is always, okay, what is sustainable tourism? Or what is sustainability?
Yeah, I think we can start with that. We can maybe unpack a little bit what people normally think when they hear sustainable and what it actually means.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if one just puts the word sustainable on internet, it's very easy to get some very typical things. It doesn't mean they're wrong, but there are, let's say, there are some areas that are always mentioned, and one is pollution. Waste, plastic. Save the turtles, right? Save the dolphins. Well, it's true, but also save ourselves. So we'll get maybe eventually into that topic a little bit deeper. But sustainability in general means to make sure that when we do something, when we perform an action like humans on this planet, whatever we do, we assure that in the future, somebody else will still be capable to use the resources and will still be capable to get results from similar actions. And basically, the future generation will have the possibility also to live in prosperity like we want to do now. So we want to still have water. We want to have air to breathe. We want to have food. There need to be animals and the whole ecosystem and a planet where to live in. It's a beautiful planet, right? So, of course, this sounds a little bit on the dreamer side. Getting down to what it means for business, it means that when there is a human activity, say it in the specific case of tourism, hotels, restaurants, stores, tour operators, people who go hiking in the mountain, boats in the sea or in a lake, places for picnic, an airport, everything should be designed and operated in a way that it maintains a stable ecosystem, meaning that it does not damage the place where it's happening. That is the basic thing.
And I think it's very nice entry into one of the examples I thought you were going to talk about today, which is Crete. And we did a lot of field work there a year ago. So I think there are a lot of interesting stories that you can share, both about the people and the planet. So on the side of the water, on the side of the carrying capacity and other things. But I give the floor to you.
Well, Crete is a case that I have a lot at heart because it is a beautiful island, like many islands of the Mediterranean, like many places of the planet. And Crete on its own could be a country. It has everything. And for the amount of people who are the inhabitants of Crete, there are enough resources to live in an incredibly well state of welfare. There is enough food as to export. there is enough water as to maintain twice as much the population of the island, including all the agriculture and so on. There is enough of everything. They have mountains up to 2,000 meters high. They have forests. They have places that are a little bit desertic. Is one of the places of Greece that exports the majority of the food that they produce. Now, ironically enough, because of the touristic operation, the island of Crete is struggling for lack of water, for example. At the same time, in order to feed all the tourists that arrive to Crete every year, which we are talking about 4 to 5 million tourists, which is roughly a half of the total tourists that arrive to Greece as a country during the year. So only one island gets a half of the tourists. And so basically, we are overusing a place. So this boils down to a concept which is called the carrying capacity of a territory. So what does it mean? It means how many people can be in a place without deteriorating, without losing the capability of this place to sustain life. Very simple, right?
And so what
Did you want to say
normally,
something?
yeah, what normally happens, so right now you said there are about 4 or 5 million tourists coming to Crete, where I think, I'm not sure what's the total population of the island, but I remember that the biggest city, which is Heraklion, has about 140,000 inhabitants, and the rest of the cities are very tiny. So the next one is 70,000, the next one is 30,000, and in total, I think it's about, I would say, not more than 500,000 on the whole island. So we're basically getting 10 times more tourists.
You're very close. You're very
per
close.
year.
It's about 650,000.
Indeed. And so the normal tourist model, I think, is very consumeristic. So people come to the beach, usually to have nice sea holidays. They rent a place. They consume food from restaurants. They go to supermarkets. What else? I think we maybe can break down. So what do tourists consume?
Oh, it's incredibly
and
simple.
have?
Yeah, it's incredibly simple. Actually, in Greece, the touristic industry is very, very basic. It is hotels, restaurants, store with souvenirs and local products, a bit of sports, water sports, or a lot of sailing, of course. But for the rest is minor details. So it's a very different country compared to Italy or Spain or France, where you have a very highly developed touristic infrastructure that can extract value from everything. Yeah, so with this model, let's say that the country per se is capable to utilize about a half of the year for extracting value from tourism. And tourists come and they do one thing: they sleep in the place, they eat in the place, they buy the local products, they have some fun at the beach or hiking in the mountains, or maybe they do yoga or they sail, and that's it. They leave. Yeah.
All right. And so I think the key of this introductory video is, the sustainable tourism, right? So are these things that you mentioned about tourism in Crete sustainable? And if not, then why not?
Well, let's break them down a little bit. Okay. Speaking about carrying capacity, when you have an island that exports about 3 times of what it produces, let's assume that from the more than 500,000 people it has, it could sustain perfectly well 1.5 million. But in reality, is faced with 4 or 5 millions during the touristic season. That means that Crete has to import food. Automatically, the usage of energy, the whole carbon footprint, the usage of water, the extra pollution, the amount of garbage that is produced explodes like if it was popcorns. You have one grain and it becomes this big. Well, that's what happens. So basically there are complete shipments by boat and even by airplane that come just to feed all these people that are here. Funny enough, about 25% of the food that is consumed by the tourists in Crete comes from United States of America. Another part comes from China, and the rest comes from the rest of Europe or Middle East. So it is interesting, right? So the carbon footprint, imagine how much movement, how much fuel, and how much pollution is this creating just for so that some people can be at the beach.
It's very interesting that you previously mentioned that Crete actually contains enough agriculture to feed the whole island. And now what we hear is that during the tourist season, it is importing food from places that are really far away. And I can imagine between China and Crete, a shipment container would take, I don't know, months to arrive.
Oh, so yeah, they're purchased even 1 year in advance. These are contracts that are ongoing because the hotel chains, now we go to the hotels, right? Because we were speaking about food, so that's restaurants. And restaurants try to cater with the local food. That's usually quite sustainable. I mean, there are places, and we saw them in Crete, which is fantastic. You have the family that has the restaurant, and the grandparents are there, and then the ladies, the daughters are in the kitchen, and the sons that are already adults, they go out and they fish during the early morning or in the evening, and then they cook the fish the next day for the people who come with the local products and all that. That is an incredible, beautifully set up for sustainability, because it's really maintaining a harmony with the environment, with the culture, which is very, very important because you give prosperity to the people. What happens is when you put the hotels, especially the big hotels, they struggle. Yeah.
Before we jump into the hotels, I just want to stay a moment on this picture of the family restaurant at the seaside that is fishing and preparing the fish that they got themselves from the sea, because it's a very nice image of sustainability. It's not something that we normally imagine, which is green tech. When you say sustainable anything, people think green tech. It has to be eco. It has to be like a smart car or something. In reality, what we see here, like Massimo already said, is this family place with the 3 generations working there. And in essence, the fishing they do is subsistence fishing. It's pretty much the only type of fishing and hunting and gathering that is encouraged by
and they fish what they eat and what the people eat. They do not fish an extra 3 tons to ship it overseas. It's not the same as when you go to, I don't know, one of the big brands of hotels, and you have food you have the steak that comes from New Zealand. So that steak is coming from the other side of the planet to feed a person in Greece, where there is fantastic meat, because the meat is very good in Greece, just like every other food that is produced in Greece is extremely good. It's very natural. That's why I like Greece as a good example. Now, but you have the same situation in Spain. You have the same situation in Italy. You have the same situation in even in Slovenia on the coast. Everywhere in the Mediterranean. And not only in the Mediterranean, you have it everywhere in the world. So, well, let's continue with the case of Greece, because it's an easy example.
And let me jump back into that family restaurant. So besides that, we have the grandparents who are looking after the main infrastructure, welcoming guests and all that. So this is already talking about the employment of the elders, because, of course, grandparents, what other job can they do at the moment? But they can welcome guests, they can bring the menu. So that is another aspect of sustainability, so that we continue in the intergenerational dialogue, that we continue engaging and being inclusive to everybody, independently from how old they are or how young they are. And that brings me to another nice element, which is part of the story about little boy called Mano, who was the son of the ladies of the kitchen. And I think, Massimo, you can tell that story better, but I just want to say why I bring up this story is because this is part of intergenerational dialogue, which is part of sustainability. Sustainable tourism is also that the families can carry the craft that they do together. If it is a fishing restaurant in a nice little village on Crete, then they continue and they support each other. And that is also an aspect of sustainability that is often overlooked because it's in social development and it's hard to measure and it's hard to quantify. But
Yeah.
yes, we have this little story of Mano, the fishing boy.
Well, of course, the what you say is extremely important because it's touching multiple sustainable development goals. It's touching no poverty, it's touching zero hunger, it's touching good health and well-being, it's touching gender equality, it's touching so many aspects, the decent work and economic growth. And indeed, the local businesses, especially the family owned, but in general, the small businesses that are operating in a local way, they contribute to employment and to welfare in so many ways, but especially to the health, the mental health of the population, and also the health in general of the place from an ecosystem point of view. These places are therapeutic for the tourist that comes in. Now, it is very different when we have other type of operations, but let's stick to that. I know there's this story that is very at heart. Indeed, in the particular family where Manolis was the son of the fisherman. And what happens in many countries that where the industrialization has broken everything, like for example in Italy, you cannot see this in Italy anymore. You would see that half a century ago. In Spain, in some places, you can still see these things, but they're very remote. So we have this young boy, Manolis, that at the beginning of the season when we were doing the research, he had strict instructions by his mother not to go farther away than where they could see him, because Manolis wanted to learn to fish. So he was going around with a fishing rod, him and a little friend who was trying to help, but the little friend was not really into fishing. He was a bit afraid of the fishes, I would say. But the little friend had a bicycle. So these two boys on a bicycle, Manolis with his fishing rod sitting in the back of the bicycle and the other pedaling, they were going up and down on the bay of the village of Makrigialos in the southeast of Crete. It's a village with 800 inhabitants during the winter. During the summer, this village has more than 5,000 people. So needless to say, is a buzzing place. And here and there, wherever you go, there is a little restaurant, and there are many little restaurants. And wherever you see, suddenly you see little Manolis that is trying to fish something and maybe fighting with some fish that doesn't want to come out of the water, with the little helper that is panicking, not knowing what to do to help him out. And there was in particular one evening, this was after about 3 months that we were stationed there doing research, because it's a blue beach. It's the famous blue flag beaches that there are many in Greece. The blue flag beaches are beaches that have been categorized. They have a special certification and a special monitoring. They have been categorizing for being healthy. And the whole community contributes for maintaining these beaches in a clean state, in respecting the sea life that is there, and making sure that everything they do will guarantee that the next generation will inherit a functioning beach that can still be prosperous. Yeah, that is a very good concept. And here we are getting into certification and into what the new tourists want. Yeah, because there are tourists that look especially for these places to go. They don't want to go anymore where there is a beach that is full of little pieces of plastic and glass where they can cut their feet or whatever. And they want to go to a place where they can experience nature. So, little Manolis, we were eating in this restaurant in the dinner, and I heard the voice of grandma. The grandma was, "Oh, Mano." And it was like, okay, what happened to Manolis? No, maybe the boy got in trouble or something like that. And turning around, I didn't see the boy immediately. What I saw was all the women of the family, the mother, what that was normally, she's cooking with her sister back in the kitchen. They were all out, and grandma, and even the little sister, they were all around. And grandpa stood up and started walking towards this group. And suddenly Manolis emerges from all these women that are just around looking at what's on the floor. And he emerges with a fish that was, it was a half a meter fish for a boy which was barely 8 years old. The young boy he was half smiling, half in terror, because you could see that his legs were still trembling. For sure, he had been difficult to take that fish out of the water. And I remember in particular the face of his grandpa, that he gets there and the women kind of open up a little bit in a semicircle, and grandpa gets close there and he says, "Bravo, Manolis, bravo." And grandpa had a little bit of a tear from his eye because, he's the father of a fisherman himself. He was a fisherman himself. So at that moment, the family tradition had been passed on to the next generation. Those are the magic moments. Those are the things that humanity should remember always. Because it is not a TikTok 3-second video that get 10,000 views just because it takes you 3 seconds just to scroll, and that's why it got the view. This is something that stays. That little boy that day became a real fisherman, and from that moment on, he will be respected in the community. Next year, he might be helping his father on the boat. The boy is also studying, by the way. He's going to school. But during the summer, he's helping the family. And this is not child labor like in some countries want to portray it, but it is really the contribution to taking ahead the culture of a whole country, of a whole nation. Things that sometimes get forgotten with the industrialization. So this touches one part that is that there's not yet a specific certification on this. There is just the respect of the cultural artifacts and the art and the prehistoric stuff, the historical items. But very soon, there will be some type of recognition for businesses that are capable to respect the local culture. That is an important point.
Indeed, and it's a beautifully told story, and the story itself is wonderful. And I just want our listeners to really imagine how that translates into sustainability, that those things, they're more sustainable, like the famous green tech that is advertised all over the place, because the real sustainability is the one that benefits the people now and benefits the future generations equally. And also the planet, of course. And so the example of this village, an example of this fishing restaurant with several generations, and how the craft, the family knowledge gets passed on from son to son or from son to daughter, and I don't know, is very important to remember in building, probably for many of the listeners, in building their tourist ventures. These aspects, they're, like Massimo said, they're not yet certified, but they are equally meaningful and important, maybe even more important. But from this image of the little family restaurant, let's go to hotel chains, because this is another aspect of the whole sustainable tourism.
Yeah.
Or not so sustainable.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no, because it depends from the point of view, and it depends what you analyze and what you measure. Yeah. Now, in the same village of Macrigialos, now that we went all the way down into a village, the last thing I want to say about the family business is that the majority of these type of businesses are sustainable by design. You can play around with measuring everything. You can try to be devil's advocate and say, yes, but they do not separate the garbage every day. You can say those things, but they are sustainable by design in every single aspect. They don't waste energy. They don't generate extra waste. They usually do not pollute more than what is the minimum necessary, and so on. At most is some detergent when they are cleaning the floor, yeah, and the fuel for the fishing boat. Now, what is important, and this is where the Sustainable Ecotourism Awareness Project becomes important, is that these type of businesses, for them, it would be very easy to get a sustainability certification. They just don't know. So this is where this type of trainings, like the one that we are introducing today now, is important. Because if you are a small business owner, if you are a family business owner, or if you have an operation that is already active, if maybe you take people for tours in the forest or in the gorges, or maybe you take them fishing, or maybe you have a little a bed and breakfast, a cafeteria, every single thing, or you just teach yoga on the beach. There may be a certification that applies to your business, and then automatically you can be featured in catalogs, in platforms, and so on, and people will find you. People will probably even travel to go to your business. Okay, now let's take a look in the same village. Yeah, 800 people live there. During the summer is more than 5,000. In some peak years, it has been all the way up to 8,000. So we are talking one order of magnitude bigger, just the amount of visitors. There are two hotels that are a chain hotel. Those two hotels can cater up to a total, I think, about 1,500 people in total. And what is interesting, those are the only places where one eats food that is not from Greece, is not from Crete, and the majority is not even from Europe. If you get into one of those hotels, yeah, maybe it looks like it is the same food, but it's not. And the majority of the stuff that they use is quite industrial, actually. It's processed, pre-processed, ultra-processed, and so on. But then you see also the difference in the type of people. Normally, the people who are in the hotels that serve more junk food, they tend to be more overweight. For example, they tend to be more lazy. They tend to use more mechanical toys for having fun. Yeah, they like noise. So it's a different type of
I think
profile.
here is important to explain what you mean by mechanical toys, because I think it can be wildly
Oh, it's
misunderstood.
simple. Instead of rowing in a canoe, they want to have the 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 water bike, the one with the jet, the jet ski, uh, which is not necessarily too bad, but is the type of mentality. They are not there to enjoy the sea. They want to enjoy the experience of going fast on a machine. It's different.
Not to mention the swimming pools, and that is particularly a big issue on Crete, because those hotels by design, they have to cater to people who don't want to go to the sea, even though being completely on the beach. And yes, so for the reason that people are not feeling very comfortable with swimming in the sea, the hotels have to cater to them and provide not just one swimming pool, but sometimes up to 3 different swimming pools in the same hotel. And that contributes heavily to the water issue that Crete has been having last years. And maybe this is something to talk about as well. Massimo, over to you.
Yeah, and okay, here we are not trying to demonize or to make anyone look bad, yeah, because everybody has the right to try to create a business, and everything is legitimate. And what is also very interesting, many of these infrastructures that indeed consume a lot more energy and produce a lot more waste, have much more synthetic materials, yeah, which contribute to microplastics, and they use stronger chemical products. They normally have a big series of certifications, and the majority of the stuff they use is certified. Now, this is very complex to understand. It's very complex to navigate, especially for a business owner, because, okay, if one uses let's assume that we want to be super, super, super sustainable, yeah? We take some water and we add a little bit of vinegar and we put it on a sprayer to clean the windows. Is the most sustainable window cleaner that exists on the planet in history. Yeah. Windex, actually the famous brand, was done with vinegar, precisely. And then, of course, because the smell of vinegar, not everybody likes it. So there's always the commercial trick, oh, let's add some perfumes and so on. And then it ends up being a completely different product. The point is, in many cases, something is certified simply because the threshold to fulfill the certification requirements is not so strict. And it's only a matter of if you can spend enough as to adapt. So what happens is that a product that might or might not be very, very sustainable gets a certification. Or maybe is not the best, but at least is sustainable to a certain extent and gets the certification. So you start buying these products because then you can also be considered sustainable because you're using those products. But these products are usually more expensive because the people who needed to certify had to spend money to get the certification. So automatically your expenses are higher and your services become more expensive. That means that you are less competitive than the people who do not have those certifications. So there is a balance, which is a logical balance that one has to find into how much one needs to be certified and how much is enough. And the how much is enough is that many times something done in a simple way is just sustainable. And many times it can pass the verification without needing to substitute it for something that has a certificate. Of course, there are impossible situations, like for example, in Spain, if you want to build a house in a plot of land when there is nothing out there on the hill, logic would dictate that if you use the same soil that you have right there to cook the bricks, or if you use the stones that are right there to build a house, well, you're building something that is extremely sustainable because you're using the same material that is in the plot of land. But the building regulations will not let you use those materials because they do not have the seal of certification. Because, you know, if you use a stone that is out in the field, that stone does not have a seal from an authority that says, hey, this stone is certified for use as sustainable. Yeah. So the complexities for business owners are extremely big. And we hope that in this series of trainings, there will be some answers, because I'm sure that everybody has questions there. Okay, how do I navigate these regulations? How do I get certified if I do business A or business B or business C? And that is what is important, right? To understand how you can navigate the regulations, how you can take advantage of a certification to stand out in the competition. And maybe, and this is, I think, where the third part of our conversation should be, is what kind of opportunities arise from the existing problems? Because there are alternatives to do business in different ways, which can open revenue streams without having to compete to the businesses that already exist.
Is it something that you want to unpack in this video as well? The maybe an example of how problem can be turned into an opportunity when we talk about sustainable tourism.
Absolutely. For example, and this has been done in Machu Picchu, Peru, has been done in the Louvre, has been done by multiple people. A simple, and it's in fashion, a digital solution. Yeah. And I remember even one of the businesses that we interviewed during the pandemics, that you interviewed actually during the pandemics, it was a tour operator who had a friend who was a photographer, And they said, well, how don't we team up and we sell virtual visiting tours? And so it happens that even Google has a platform for 3D tours and visualization, and many museums in the world are beginning to do that. And basically, instead of bringing the tourist in one place to make them visit, to take them around, you take them virtually around in a virtual reality or in a virtual video presence, which is also something beautiful because it allows people who cannot travel to visit a place. So not only you're going to be getting the clients that do not fit in a location because of the carrying capacity, but you will also get in the clients who are not capable to travel for multiple reasons, either because they cannot pay the plane ticket, or because they have some kind of handicap. Maybe they are in a wheelchair. They cannot enter the same places where you're going to be. So you can do something that is actually very good, make money, and you don't have to compete with the tour operators that are already in the same island or in the same forest or in the same mountain. So this is just one example.
And I think there could be many that come to mind. One especially is if we talk about pandemic and what happened with supply chains, when people were not able, when little stores were not able to source from where they used to source, which mostly or highly impacted by imports, by foreign imports. That actually creates a possibility to stock things from your local producers. The farms nearby, the distilleries nearby, if we talk about alcohol, because all the alcohol that is purchased for any store anywhere is usually something that comes from Massimo. You can maybe help me with some details on that one, because
I was actually in one of the events where the priest come and blesses the distilling tools that people were going to use in Crete to make the yearly production of the raki, which is nobody. I still do not
which we have to say
is,
that does not happen because it is not allowed.
Well, I do not understand if it is legal or not. But the point, if there is a priest that comes and blesses the tools, you can produce raki, which is a very strong distilled, and I think every country has its own version. Yeah, like the Hungarians have the palinka, you have the Slivovitz in other places, you have the moonshine in America, etc. And it is something endemic, it's part of the culture, right? And tourists love it. Yeah, it is to be said that raki is one of those things that can convince anyone that can sing and dance, right? And that says everything. But yes, indeed, you can revalorize, and this is another business opportunity. Instead of trying to recreate something that is done in another country by another culture, look inside of the local culture, inside of the local products, inside of what you can find there, something that people would like, but they just don't know it exists or is simply not offered. And every single place of the planet has fantastic recipes, just to talk about food, for example, no? Because there are fruits that exist in certain seasons, only in certain places. And then you can learn, present it in some places. We saw a very good example of a hotel in the island of Rhodos that they did not have almost any food waste because they would reuse every single little thing. They would make pickle from the shell of the watermelon, and they would use that pickle instead of to decorate drinks.
So instead of purchasing an olive pack, which costs more money to the business, they would make those quadrants of the pickled watermelon shell, and then they would decorate indeed. So they had,
and they were delicious. I tried them; they were delicious. So there is less waste. Basically, they're generating less garbage.
And in general, I think in food and beverage, there are many opportunities, and especially in tourism industry. And something that I think if we have any SMEs who are listening to us that work in food and beverage, so it's restaurants, cafes, or food stores, I think it's very important to remember that at the moment, all over the world, what happens to tourism is that when one visits a place, it's stocked with the same multinational company fully.
Yeah.
So from top to bottom, I get the same French
It makes no
fries
sense to
in any
travel for
country.
food. If you eat,
Indeed.
basically, you eat the same stuff wherever you go, you know, the same ingredients wherever you go. Okay, you want to go to fine dining, but excuse me, but why in an island of the Mediterranean you need a wine that comes from Chile when the best wine in the world is in the Mediterranean region? Hello.
So I think the rational, side to what Massimo just said is that we have to remember that we should not repeat after other people the same labels. It's not about the labels when it comes to any product that you source. It is about the essence, the content. So people like to drink something on holidays. Okay, fine, but give them the local, like Massimo said. Or
The uniqueness.
Indeed. Or if
Yeah.
they like to eat fish, fine, but let it not be a salmon from Norway if it is in Greece, because Greece has plenty of its own local fish that is amazing, that you've never tried, you could not even imagine. I mean, precisely island of Rhodos, due to climate change and the heating of the water, now has lots of the, what is it called, tiger fish, the fish with
it's the lionfish, the one that has
the
like the
lion,
feathers
yes,
around,
the lionfish,
which is delicious, by the way. You just have to remove those things that are, because they're poisonous if you touch them. But
who would know that if instead of served a unique exotic lionfish in an island of Rhodos, we are served a Norwegian salmon? I mean, what for?
Well, consider something else. There are places in many restaurants around the world that they serve that famous fish, which is from the sea between China and Japan or Korea, which is a poisonous fish. Is extremely dangerous to eat. You need to know how to clean it, because otherwise, it's goodbye, baby. So, well, we have the lionfish here in the Mediterranean, thanks to the fact that the water is warming up, thanks to climate change. Actually, we have this fish that is coming from the Red Sea and now is populating the south of the Mediterranean. And turns out that some guys have already discovered that it is delicious and is less poisonous than that famous fish from the Far East. Basically is not poisonous. All you have to do is remove these feathers that it has, because it has like wings like feathers. You just remove them, and the fish itself is something delicious.
I think now we're going from the sustainable tourism introduction to cook your own amazing meal from the local products introduction.
But it's part of the sustainability.
Absolutely, and it's actually one of the big initiatives that we are leading now is about nutrition and health and sustainable living in general. But I guess if anybody wants to learn about that, there's going to have to be a different video. I think here with the sustainable tourism introduction for the EU co-funded project, Sustainable Ecotourism Awareness, I think we need to somehow summarize or give
there's
some
a few
words.
Things we didn't talk about, which is, for example, energy, preserving, using renewable energy, but that's already quite mature. I think if anybody is not transitioning to renewable energy at this moment, will become like the dinosaur, will be extinct. So this is not about certification. This is, hello, if you are a business owner and you're still using a type of energy that is will go extinct, basically. You need to use some smart fuels. You need to use solar panels, wind energy, etc., and preferably things that do not need energy, because there are also passive machinery, and there are many solutions. Cars. I mean, well, anyway. But
actually,
energy
regarding
is one
the
thing.
energy, the passive energy, I think one of the big things in tourism is air conditioning, because every tourist accommodation requires to have it by the tourists or by the owners. I don't know who decides that it's required, but needs to have an air conditioner. However, it depends if we start from scratch and we build in a way that we have the passive energy and we have the building done in a way that it protects from extreme heat by the way it's built, and it's possible. It's not rocket science, and it has been done long time before we were even born, I think.
It is a matter of, sorry, but it is a matter of intelligence, yeah? Because when one decides to invest money and make a building, build a hotel, build a house, build a school, it is very easy to speak in the project and say, we need to spend as little as possible. But what they do not think about is how much they're going to spend in maintenance afterwards. So you have these huge buildings, these huge hotels and all that the construction itself was done to try to maximize the space, to put more people to sleeping in there and so on. And maybe they did not build an extra little roof that would protect the windows from getting hot with the sun. And bang, you have 5 degrees more inside of the rooms. And then you're spending more kilowatts of energy for the air conditioning.
Yeah,
so it's as simple as that. And then over 1 year or 2 years or even 5 years, you end up spending more than what you saved in the building.
And I think that's precisely an extremely important point for anybody who wants to go into sustainable tourism, because that translates into anything that into horeca, so hotels and restaurants. It translates into transportation that is part of tourism. If the attempt to begin with is to cut the costs, that probably is already not sustainable. And like Massimo said, going forward in 1 to 3 years, it's going to cost so much more to try to achieve a better quality, because the tourists who are aware and who are eco-aware, they will come and they will demand a better quality.
And we have seen owners of hotels that now, or Airbnbs and and some of the guys who rent rooms in those platforms, they charge extra if you want to turn on the air conditioning. So this is a complete lack of intelligence, because automatically one says, no, you know what, I'm already paying a lot of money because normally the places, they are not cheap because they're not cheap. I'm already paying a lot of money and you want to charge me extra per day when I use the air conditioning? No, you should have been smarter and build a place that does not need that much air conditioning, which is very simple way. I mean, you mentioned savings. It depends where you want to save. Do you want to save when you build the thing, or you want to save when you are a running business? And the correct answer is you want to save when you have a running business, because that way the business will generate more profit. Instead of giving your money to the electrical grid or to the water grid or to the fuel seller, that money will stay in your pocket. That is the difference. And maybe the only thing you needed to do is to plant 1 extra tree. Because if a restaurant has sufficient trees around, and we have seen it, you can be at 35 degrees in the beach. But if the restaurant is surrounded by trees, 1 tree, 3 years old, a fruit tree or a regular green tree, will give you the same amount of freshness as an air conditioning of 1.5 tons.
And that is something hard to imagine, but it is true. And one aspect that we did not discuss, I don't think we should start with it at this point, but what you said about how tourists think, oh, I already paid so much money, I'll go to somebody else. I don't want to pay extra for turning on air conditioning. I think there is a lot of inequality and also misperceptions and misconceptions on both sides, on the side of the providers, tourist providers, and on the side of the clients. As clients, for example, one pays a lot, really a lot, but on the provider side, what gets left to that person. So for example, in accommodations in Greece, with €100 per night, what the person actually earns on that accommodation might be as little as 10 to 15 euros, especially if it's a one-night stay, because, you know, there's cleaning, there's this.
The taxes, the platform cost, the commission to the providers, etc., etc. Yes, of course. At the end, they end with a misery in their pocket.
Not to mention that the things break, and indeed, you know,
Absolutely.
bad investment in bad ventilation at the beginning when they were trying to cut costs, now going to cost them a lot because somebody smoked in their apartment and they cannot get that smell out. So
and the civil engineer who built the place for them told them, oh, it doesn't matter. We save money on making the wall, you know, a little bit thinner, and don't put trees because who is going to clean the leaves afterwards? And then what you end up with is paying electricity for an air conditioning that is barely sufficient to cool down the building, which is noisy, which is not healthy, and so on. It's completely unsustainable. So that's why I say it's a problem of intelligence, because it's the intelligence also of the engineers and sometimes the architect, you know, and is the fear that one wants to start without thinking ahead on what will be the plan. So everybody should be trained in make business plans of 5 years, for example, and see, okay, what are my costs? What are the contingencies? You know, what are the risks? Because every piece of technology can break and will break someday, because technology breaks. It's completely normal. That's why there are repair shops. That's why there are mechanics. That's why we take the car to maintenance, right? It's completely normal. So do not expect that adding a piece of technology to compensate for a lack of sustainable design will be more efficient. It has to be designed sustainable from the beginning. You cannot add a technology on top and make it sustainable. It will never be equally sustainable. I mean, whoever convinces you of that and makes you believe that that is true is just because they're trying to sell you the technology.
So I think we have, our guest expert here, Massimo Mercuri, has unpacked a lot of interesting aspects to sustainable tourism. And, you know, together we discussed starting from the carrying capacity to the water issue, to the food and beverage, to the social development, to back to hotels, and now to energy efficiency and inequality, and then to sustainable building. So these are just the conversation starters. These are something that will be hopefully unpacked with the rest of the course. We encourage you, of course, to give it as much as you wanted to receive from this course, because the more you invest of your time and of study time, the better is the outcome for yourself. So Massimo, would you like to say a few words of closing?
One last word. Well, I hope, because of course, whoever has been seeing the video, this is not a disclaimer, this is completely open. I intentionally make emphasis on certain details to try to come across, you know, to try to have strong messages coming across, because I am trying to trigger your mind. I'm trying to trigger your ideas. I'm trying to see if whoever is watching this video can open the creativity, the imagination, and see what opportunities for new businesses are there. What opportunities for an existing business are there to get ahead of the competition, to shine, to stand out, to do things better, to attract those good tourists, you know, because there are all types of tourists. We didn't speak about that. That's probably for another type of things. But I remember in Rhodos, there was a beach where they were very happy because finally, after 5 years of managing the type of advertisement they get, they got rid of the type of tourists that they didn't like. And I'm not going to say which nationality, because they mentioned exactly one nationality, and because they were drunk. But all the families, all the community of the island said, that's it. We make the same money with a drunken hooligan than with a person who is not a drunk but just enjoys with a family a healthy vacation on the beach.
Probably more because there are less costs.
Probably. Less to clean also and less dangerous. So I might sound exaggerated. Maybe I'm not that much, but it is on purpose. It is precisely because I want to encourage whoever is watching this video to go ahead and listen to these trainings to understand what are the tools, what are the legal and the certification tools and things that they hopefully will learn that can help them navigate this very complex landscape. So good luck, enjoy the classes.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.